Today we are going to learn about the water cycle. We will define different parts of the water cycle, and we will also discuss the sun's role in the water cycle. Before we discuss the water cycle, take a moment and talk to your neighbor. I want you to discuss why the water cycle is so important to life here on Earth. The water cycle is defined as the movement of water from the Earth's surface to the air and back again. First, we will discuss the water located on the earth. So when we look at this picture of the earth, we can see that water is everywhere. It covers about 71% of our earth. That's interesting. If the earth is covered in water, why are we constantly told to preserve our water? Well, even though there is a lot of water here on Earth, a very small fraction of that water is fresh water. In fact, only 2.5% of the water available is safe for human consumption. Also, of that 2.5%, only 1% is actually accessible. The other 1.5% is trapped in glaciers and snowfields. That is not a lot of water for the 7.1 billion people who live here. Now let's talk about the different parts of the water cycle. We are going to discuss evaporation first. Evaporation is when the water changes from a liquid to a gas. When water becomes heated, it starts to evaporate into water vapor. Therefore, when the sun shines on the Earth's water, whether it's an ocean, stream, or puddle, the water starts to evaporate into water vapor and rise into the air. The sun is a critical part of our water cycle. The water cycle is powered by heat energy from the sun. Now, although we typically see evaporation from lakes and ocean, evaporation can occur in other places as well. For example, the water molecules can also evaporate from trees, plants and trees. This process is called transpiration. Transpiration occurs when plants release water vapor in the air through their pores. It's easy to think of this as the plant sweating. Speaking of sweating, did you know you also play a part in the evaporation stage of the water cycle? When you sweat, the water that is released from your body evaporates into the air, just like the plants and even animals. As you can see, the water cycle is all around us all the time. So, what happens when all the water evaporates into the air? As the water vapor rises, it cools and changes from a gas to a liquid and creates tiny drops of water that forms clouds. This process is called condensation. Condensation occurs when water vapor is cooled and turns back into tiny drops of water. When the tiny droplets of water grow large enough and become too heavy, they fall back to the earth as precipitation. Precipitation can occur in four different forms: rain, hail, sleet, a mixture of ice pellets mixed with rain and snow, or snow. Once the water falls back to the earth, there are two routes the water can take before it starts the water cycle all over again. The first route we will discuss is runoff. This is when the water that did not sink into the ground reaches the earth's surface and simply runs off into streams, rivers, ponds, lakes, and wetlands. The water could also fall down and be soaked into the ground, where it will move into rocks through cracks and pores in spaces. This is called infiltration. Keep in mind that not all water stops at the rocks. Some of the water continues to move even further down into the soil to a level that is filled with water, called groundwater. This process is driven by infiltration. Okay, let's recap the water cycle.